Okay, folks, it's time for another interview. This is a kind of a little impromptu one because I wasn't sure when Steven would be available, but basically I've hooked up today with a guy called Steven Magners. I've met him in Dundee a couple of times.
Yep.
At Mark Richardson's Bard for the Cafe night, where Steven's performed a couple of sets. And actually one poem he done, well, his set, I was going to do it. In the first half, I asked if I should do a political poem or a funny poem. The audience wrote funny poem, so I dropped this political one. But because Stephen done a very political second set, then I decided to go back to the political one. It's called Scottish Independence, and then afterwards, Stephen says it was like hearing my book presented back to me in 6 minutes.
Yeah, it was.
I've got a copy of his book, Scratch the Surface. I've started to read it, but life gets in the way and whatnot. Coronaviruses and shit. So anyway, I've got him here today. He's the author of a book called Scratch the Surface, and I'd like him to introduce yourself, Stephen, and tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, first, thanks for having me, Billy. As you said, we first met with the whole kind of Bard for the Cafe sort of series of events, but as far as background goes, I'm pretty much the same as any other human being. You know, I get up, I scratch my nuts, I go to my work, and I continue the fantasy, for wanting a better way of putting it. It wasn't really I'd written that book, as you said, Scratch the Surface, that it really opened my eyes to a lot of things, and hopefully it opens a lot of other eyes.
Yeah, you present it in such a way it's for the layman.
Definitely.
Because a lot of people, it's hard to get into this stuff, so you've done a good job of kind of squeezing the basics into 100 pages. It's like a beginner's guide.
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, you talk about things at the start. There's a list of things that's what's wrong with the world.
Mm-hmm.
And can we just touch on some of them? If you're,
go for it.
So the first one you've got here is the mainstream media bias. What would you go into? Obviously,
anybody that even so much as turns the telly on these days knows about mainstream media bias. I mean, British Brainwashing Corporation and all that kind of carry on, yeah.
So you said it's not until you wrote that book that all right, okay. I've just been told we're on my profile page, hello folks, rather than my Billy Watson TV. So we'll just roll with that one.
Yeah. I've been worse places, it's all right.
So, what was I talking about? I can't remember.
British Brainwashing Corporation and all their shite.
Yeah, so it's pretty heavy these days. And yeah, you said it wasn't until you wrote your book that opened your eyes, but I'm assuming your eyes were open, which led you to write the book.
My eyes were kind of half opened, to tell you the truth. My ex-wife at the time, she was one for saying, this is happening, the next thing's happening, everything's fucking happening. And I was like, nah, come on here, you're talking piss here, hen. And it wasn't really until I started to see things for myself that I thought, oh, you fucker, she's onto something, yeah.
Right.
You onto something. And then it kind of opened my eyes to a lot of different characters, whether it be guys like John Harris, guys like David Icke, and a lot of others. You know the catch yourself, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just I've had a girlfriend living with me for a while, and she was, for instance, on her Facebook profile page, she had the picture of her and Simon Cowell, and I was like, I'm not happy with that. She's like, oh, I'm not taking that down. But eventually I've made her watch a few movies, like Occult Forces and what's it called, The Brotherhood of the Bell, Freemasonic movies, and then pointing out things in the news, and then you can see her start to see them for herself, you know. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh God, that's right. And now her mind's basically blown, you know. Sorry?
It doesn't take much to start with. I mean, you can, as you've done yourself, you can spread information as much as you want, right? You can tell people you're blue in the face. It's not until they actually start to see things for themselves that it starts to sink in. And I mean, I've had people ridicule the fuck out of me for fucking years and years now. Now they're starting to see things and going, shit, this Magners character was actually onto something.
Yeah. Yeah, so you're kind of planting seeds.
Mm-hmm.
When I first started doing comedy, basically it's because I was watching. I got into David Icke. I actually seen him on his first tour. He keeps talking about the 2 Man and a Dog tour, and somebody gave me the video of Turning Off the Tide, which was a very like an hour and a half. It's very succinct, basically the basics.
Mm-hmm.
And then I watched the news after that. It's like, well, that's all the bullshit, you know. And then I kind of started researching more. But yeah, you do get. I got ridiculed back then, but I started doing comedy kind of with the intention of waking people up because I watched Bill Hicks, you know.
Yeah.
But I was getting really frustrated, you know, when they weren't making it up. So then you have to learn, you know, you say your piece, but you maybe choose your battles a bit more wisely.
Aye.
Willing to listen, then you kind of go into it more. But obviously, if they're programmed off the system, you're better just leaving them alone, you know.
Aye. I mean, there's some folk they're so fucking politically correct. They wouldn't say the word shit with a fucking mouth full of it.
Aye.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's the holier than thou type.
Aye.
But actually,
Pricks is another one.
In their closet as well. But so yeah, that was the mainstream media bias. It's unbelievable. Like I never watch the news as much as I can, you know, just avoid it. But I've had to recently switch on the BBC kind of main page, and I just see the headlines, and you know exactly what they're telling you, but they're giving another kind of view, you know. So they use language very cleverly.
Aye, definitely. I mean, I've noticed the last couple of days the main keywords that they've been trying to push is ramp up. Everything's getting ramped up. You know, this is getting ramped up. The next thing's getting ramped up. You know, if anybody remembers before this virus nonsense was put on the screens, the keyword of say 2019 was crisis. Everything was a fucking crisis. You know, NHS in crisis, education crisis, government crisis, immigrant crisis. Oh, for fuck's sake, everything was a crisis. All they've done is changed the words. It's straight up Orwellian newspeak, for want of a better way of putting it.
Well, prior to the things being ramped up, you have to say, you know, MPs are considering, you know, this may need stricter controls or whatever, you know, they set it up and then they're just telling you, okay, they may need it, okay, obviously we're going to get told they will need it. And then Boris Johnson will say things like, you know, we told you this in the plan 2 weeks ago, you know, this is the next stage in the plan, you know. And they're basically telling you, you know, this is a plan.
It's a script, man, it's a script. And every one of the news companies are playing off of the same script. And that's what a lot of people don't realise. You know, it doesn't matter whether you watch the BBC or Sky or RT or whatever your choice of brainwashing is. It's all the same fucking script.
It's unbelievable when you get those kind of compilations, especially in America, they do it, and it's like they're all saying the same words verbatim across 25 different news channels. Like, come on.
It's the same fucking thing. I mean, a friend of mine, he's a guy called Alan Smith. He's a great guy. He works for himself. He runs a company called Discovery Wrestling that I've worked with over the years. But he's also now the sort of head political correspondent for the Biller Network. You know, so the likes of TFM and a lot of other these kind of local radio stations. He's their main sort of chief political correspondent for them now. And he's kind of the world's worst for promoting the script all the time. And he says it himself that, yeah, I get a script delivered to me at the door, but his salary depends on forwarding it.
Yeah. Well, there was a movie made called Corporation. I don't know if you've seen that a few years ago. It basically showed how, you know, the corporation is like an entity that humans are kind of trapped inside because they've got the business model to always make the profit line go up and up. So everybody inside that has to make the decisions to kind of keep the profits going up to keep the shareholders happy.
Yeah.
Even though those people within that corporation might be chopping down rainforests, whatever, and their grandchildren would face the consequences of it, it still didn't stop them doing the actions because they say if it wasn't me, it'd be somebody else, you know?
Aye. There's a lot of that. I was only following orders. That sort of mentality, you know, and that's probably kind of the worst fucking mentality you can get. You know, I was only following orders. Well, you know, so were the buggers that were shutting the doors in the gas chambers. They were just following orders too.
Yep. It's just doing my job. Like the people that put up the 5G now, these towers, you know, that's what they'll be saying as well, you know.
Aye, 5G. That's something we can get into later on. Aye. And apparently they're key workers at the moment.
That's the biggest joke going.
Aye.
So it's another thing to talk about. This is the centralisation of power.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, you think the media has like, you go in a shop and there's like 50 magazines, but it's essentially only 2 or 3 companies that are making them.
Yep.
And you know, do you think that what's happening just now, because it's crazy the reaction to the so-called virus, the draconian powers that are coming in, do you think this is basically they're trying to kill lots of businesses that are kind of run by your average people to kind of knock down the middle class down a level, so it's like corporations and businesses rule the world?
There certainly could be an element of that, Billy. Aye, there could be an element of that. What I meant more by centralisation of power was more government levels, if you know what I mean. When they start to centralise control and create powers for themselves, it becomes much easier then from themselves to create even more powers to centralise the power even quicker.
Yeah.
Get what I mean? There is this illusion of choice that, you know, when you go to the shop and whether it's a magazine or a can of juice or whatever, you'll see an aisle full of like cans of juice. And then you'll look and you'll go, well, there's about 3 companies that's making all these cans of juice. So where's the actual choice here? And when you trace back the money, follow the money, as it were, you see quite quickly that the 3 companies that make the big cans of juice, you've got a handful of people that have got basically their finger in every bloody pie. They're major shareholders in all these fucking companies.
Yeah.
So is choice really a thing, or is it just an illusion?
Yeah, well, George Carlin does a bit about that, the illusion of choice, you know.
Yeah.
And you have choice in the small things, you know, cola, Pepsi, Fanta, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, they're kept within certain parameters. None of us have a choice whether we want to stay in what we do. It's, you know, the system and the birth certificate.
I like that work of yours when you said, you know, I might be paraphrasing, but you said roughly, you think you've got a choice of what face is on the end of the dildo that gets shoved up your ass. Again.
That's it. And we're getting raped pretty hard. Just that thing you said, you know, you're same as everyone else, you just have to play this game. Just the energy it takes to just get up and go to that job that you hate, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You're in social care, is that right?
It's not so much social care. I actually work officially for the Criminal Justice Service. So up until recently, my job was guys that have got been through the court system, get given community service, they get sent to me, and I'm one of the guys that take them out on site and put them to work. But obviously it's a non-essential service, as you can imagine, so we get cancelled pretty quickly. I've been more recently working on call, so I'm sitting about the house for most of the day, scratching my nuts and all the rest of it, and then I get a phone call, we go out and we're delivering like PPE, masks, gloves, all that kind of shit, out to the likes of old folks' homes and stuff like that. That's kind of what's paying my bills at the moment.
So you were doing this job supporting other people to get a job. Was that like a full-time job? Was that a freelance kind of thing?
I'm actually working full-time for Dundee City Council.
Right, okay, so you know,
employment. One of these asshole public servants type, if you know what I mean. One of the same people that I hate myself.
Aye. Will you not be the first to get offered the vaccine then?
I fucking hope no. They can shove that vaccine right up their ass and jagging me with fuck all.
So you're not one for taking the flu vaccine every year then?
No. Not in the slightest.
I used to work beside a guy, and every year he would take the flu vaccine, and every year he'd be the only one to go off for 2 weeks with the flu.
Aye.
It's unbelievable.
We're off with heed when we point that obvious shit out.
Oh, aye. He's still fucking every year went for it. It's crazy. Other things you talk about, it's actually unbelievable. The dumbing down of education.
Yes.
You know, things like, well, people say, oh, we're making it better, blah, blah, blah. There's obvious things that's made it more, kids more stupid. We used to teach the trivium. Do you know what that is, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So critical thinking, grammar, logic, and rhetoric. If you teach people how to think, then they can grasp any topic.
Exactly.
But what they do is to teach you what to think. So it's outcome-based learning, and they give you the answer, A, B, C, D.
Mm-hmm.
So you always look for the answer. Somebody else knows better than you. The answer will be out there somewhere, instead of teaching you to think for yourself. So the fact that that's been removed and taken out of the education system, because it was in it, you know, like 100 years ago.
When my son was still at school, I remember him getting homework from the history class. And at the time, he had to write a report on what it said on the paper was, write a report on the death of Princess Diana. And he said to me, Dad, can you give me a bit of a hand with this? I don't really care what I'm doing. I was like, here we go, boy. Watch this. The first thing that I showed him was, what do you call it? It was a documentary with the guy, Keith Allen, that made it. It was Unlawful Killing. And it was basically an inquest into the inquest of Princess Diana's death.
Okay.
And so my son sponged it all in, wrote his piece, and his class teacher failed him because it wasn't the desired outcome that they were looking for. They were pushing the agenda, basically, that Princess Diana died at a car crash, you know, on site in a tunnel in Paris that was caused by the following paparazzi and all that kind of stuff. But this inquest showed that, for one, she was not a princess at the time of her death. All the royal titles had been fucking taken away from her months previously.
Okay.
She didn't die on site. She died hours and hours later because of these delayed fucking ambulances and all this other fucking bollocks. She died in hospital hours and hours later. So why the fuck did the royal family take her body and sort of claim it as their own? That's fucking straight up not needed. They also ruled that the paparazzi had nothing to do with her death, and it was actually an unlawful killing.
Okay.
That's what they ruled it as, an unlawful killing. And one of these so-called paparazzi types, I remember this for the documentary, was, I can't remember the boy's name. He was a driver of a white Fiat Uno, for whatever that was important at the time. And his body was found in a burnt out car with 2 bullet holes in his head, and they deemed it as a suicide.
That old chestnut.
For fuck's sake. Right. This is only one way that the education system as a whole is teaching bullshit to your kids. They're teaching them fucking lies.
Yeah, very much so.
And then more recently with the curriculum for excellence, and that was the UK name for, I can't remember the American equivalent, but it's the same fucking thing. They've even changed how you do basic fucking arithmetic. Aye. Like, you and I, Billy, we're of an age where if somebody says, let's say, 2 plus 3 times 4, right? I will say, right, 2 plus 3 times 4 is, well, 2 plus 3 is 5, times 4 is 20.
No.
Right? That's not what they teach the Waynes now.
No?
They're teaching the Waynes now to do the multiplication first.
Right.
So what they're seeing is 3 times 4 is 12, plus 2 is 14. So how the fuck can you have 2 plus 3 times 4 is 14 when we all knew it's fucking 20? It is straight up fucking out of the pages of 1984, this shit. I was going to say you couldn't make it up, but they already fucking have.
With us, basically.
Right.
Even the daylight savings, we just went through that. That's a bit weird thing to go through twice a year. Just all of a sudden, time moves forward an hour, or jumps back an hour.
Aye.
It's another way to manipulate reality. It's just,
As I said through the book, it's to keep you out of sync with nature.
Yeah.
It's all about to keep you out of sync with nature.
Yeah. Especially, just now, everyone locked in their house, that's going to be causing a lot of people mental health issues.
And a lot of people don't realise, look, right now, what we on, 2nd of April, something like that, day 397 of fucking lockdown or whatever the fuck you want to call it. Yeah, there's roughly just over 3 billion people on house arrest. And let's not beat about the bush, because that's exactly what it is. You're under fucking house arrest. You think you've got the freedom of going to the shop and spending money you don't have on shit you don't need, right? But you're still under house arrest. Don't leave home. Fear the virus. And nobody's saying the fucking obvious. It is biologically impossible for a human being to actually catch a virus.
Yeah, I've posted a few videos about that and read a few different, credentialed experts. I hate the experts getting drafted in, but in some things there is a science, and this is a science that you can't actually catch a virus through the air.
I mean, what is it? By definition, it is a virus is what a solvent that can only replicate within the living tissue of an animal or something like that. I might be paraphrasing and misquoting, but that's the gist of it.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't catch it for a sneeze, and all these fucking sheep bastards walking about with their fucking masks on. It's fucking hilarious.
Oh,
I go to Tesco's now. Fuck me.
I went to the shopping this morning. We drove, and basically there's a big, huge queue. Everyone's 6 feet apart. And I was like, I'm not waiting on that. And you drive past a few of them, we're standing with a mask on. I was like, oh, for fuck.
I seen a boy. He was wearing a mask similar to that I worked in the building trade for a lot of years. This guy was wearing this mask, similar to what a name's taper would do. Similar to that, it's maybe more heavy plastic duty with mad filters and that on it. Again, for cunts that are sanding the Ames taping and all that, it's a dusty atmosphere and all that, and he's wearing this big kind of Darth Vader type fucking mask, and I'm like, mate, for fuck's sake, you just look like an absolute fucking fanny. Helping no cunt,
Oh, it's just, there's a different kind of view about all this. I don't know if you've probably heard about QAnon, and there's another side to what could be happening. There's like the official side of the virus is like, it could be a way to find out those people are not paying attention, let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And they're believing all this stuff, so they'll basically sign up for the vaccine, and then if the 5G whatever gets switched on partially or whatever, because if you put aluminium inside a microwave, it's no, it causes a reaction. Well, if you've got aluminium in your brain, there's a microwave, it'll zap you basically, and that's a one way to kind of wiping out that section of society that's not got their spirit connected.
There's other metals being introduced into your system too, like fluoride in the water. Fluoride's a metal, lithium's a fucking metal, these kind of things in your water supply. And again, it's great being able to speak to somebody that can go, all right, aye, fair enough, it's a thing, compared to a lot of folk just try to shout you down and go, nah, bollocks.
The thing that gets to me is, like, some people comment, and a few of my friends talking about stuff, don't go out, etc. So I'll chuck in a wee video. I'm not doing it too often, but if I think the person's cool, whatever, even though I know they're in the system, they just instantly ridicule you without actually taking time to watch the video and go and research it further,
Yeah. So
it's that's the thing that annoys me the most. Like, if I'm saying this, why just instantly ridicule it instead of saying, okay, like you would. I talk to guys at my work, and I get nowhere usually, but there's a guy the other day listened to me, And I was like, oh yeah, tell me more about that. And oh yeah, write it down. And then immediately sent it to his dad to research it because I said, this is caused by 5G's people getting ill. And the guy's like, what? I was like, have you ever noticed that there's not many birds or insects going around these days? And he's like, hey, you know what? My father feeds the birds every year, and he's got tons of birds coming. He says this year there's no birds, and they're wondering where it was, and that kind of made a penny drop within him. So it's like, give me the info and take a look at it. But you're expecting everybody should have that reaction, especially now, because it's just got real,
And there was that whole thing months and months ago. People sharing information about 5G and the big masts when they would get switched on for testing, that things like birds and other wildlife, for wanting a better way of putting it, were dropping dead beside the fucking thing. It's not a thing it's there for. It's not to help anybody, and anybody think it's there for faster fucking internet or just a fool, and they deserve everything they fucking get.
Yeah,
it's a fucking weapon.
Basically, yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's built in within a frequency range that it's part of the electromagnetic spectrum that we all exist within, but it's close enough in frequency terms to interact with your physical beings, and it's not for the better.
Yeah,
certainly not for the better.
When it's switched on to a specific frequency, it displaces the oxygen particles spin.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, they can't get absorbed through the hemoglobin into the blood.
I mean, people forget a lot, Billy, that simple things that we take for granted, like thoughts and dreams, are frequencies.
Mm-hmm.
They are frequencies within themselves. And if you start fucking about with those fucking frequency bands, you're going to get major fucking control of folk.
Yeah, well, the craziest thing about this is, there is obvious, doubts as to the safety of it.
Mm-hmm.
So surely, as a society, the first thing we should say, right, before we chuck all these masks everywhere, let's do some long-term, check, first of all, how the radiation that we've got just now is affecting us, because even that in itself
Right.
But then to go and put all this untested, it's uninsurable, all this stuff, because insurance companies won't touch it, because basically they know it's going to cause a lot of damage. So why are you putting that up? Should they say stop, especially right now, because if there is some kind of virus going around, if that technology has been doubts about it, it might suppress your immune system. So that's the last thing you want to be doing when people are dropping dead from a virus that you're saying you're going to...
And if there was a virus going around, why would you put emphasis on creating this next generation of fucking internet nonsense?
Yeah.
But what? Stay in your house, stay in your house, stay in your house. Okay, that's fine, we'll stay in my house. But what the fuck are you doing in the streets when you're not staying in your house?
The whole self-isolation, first of all, they create these words, they put words together, self-isolate, and what's the other one? Social distancing. And
it's
then,
straight out of 1984.
Sorry? Aye. People think it's a thing and then they start doing it, but if it was that bad, what they're telling us, like some Stephen King plague that's going around in the stand, then surely we should all stay in our house, and a guy should come around in a van and drop food off, and we should pick it up until the virus goes away, But some people are going to work, we're in supermarkets, we're passing quite closely, it makes the whole thing a mockery,
Aye, it's definitely a mockery. I mean, where I work for Dundee City Council, and I don't give a fuck if any of Dundee City Council see this, fuckies. 75% or more of my team have been sent home because of pre-existing health conditions, and that's fine. That's not their choice. It's just something that they've had to deal with. They've been sent home. They're on full pay, sitting in the house doing fuck all. Yet folk like me are on call, delivering PPE to certain sites throughout the town that need it.
Yeah.
So, I'm only classed as essential when the phone goes.
Yeah.
I'm not essential any other time.
Mm-hmm.
This is coming from somebody that spent 4 years working for the fucking co-op. I'd have been more essential stacking fucking beans on the shelf in the fucking co-op than I am now. It's fucking arse backwards.
Yeah, I mean, that's this whole world. There was actually something on BBC News the other day, one of these headlines that says, how is coronavirus turning the world inside out or something, or upside down, and how is that, making the world better? Basically, it was telling you, that this world is in fact inverted. The system we're living in just now, like
the inversion's it's a great example, Billy. Inversion's a great thing. I'll probably paraphrase and misquote like fuck, but I can't remember who said it. Like doctors destroy health, universities destroy knowledge. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know that.
It's a relatively famous quote that I've just fucked.
David Icke uses it quite often.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah, what else in the book was really sort of clicking your buttons?
Yeah, just about to say that actually. You've got some other bits in it. Obviously, the poisoning of the population. So you mentioned that with the fluoride for a start. Yeah. The fact that calcifies our pineal gland. The pineal gland's vital, and it's basically part of what's shutting us down, and making us more stupid as well as a species. So, and the food as well in the supermarket, it's all dead food. All this processed food.
I mean, that's thing. One of the major artificial sweeteners, aspartame, right? Yeah. I didn't think anything of it. It's just that it's an artificial sweetener. It makes things taste kind of sweet and nice. You think, oh, good. And you look in, where did it come from? It came from they were researching the E. coli virus. There's another virus for you, E. coli virus. And it was actually for want of a better way of putting it, was the fecal matter of the E. coli virus, which they then synthesized in a lab for the sake of mass consumption, mass production. So synthesized virus shit is now in your food chain, and you think that's all right?
Exactly. Well, basically, it's part of their way to absolve themselves of responsibility, is because they put all the ingredients and everything, This is my fluoride-free toothpaste, but obviously there's still chemicals within this.
Yeah.
But everything you buy, we have the opportunity to look at the label and to go and research what it is. So it's our own free will choice at the end of the day to eat shit.
Well, they'll tell you it's your choice, but they'll give you a choice of bullshit, sheep shit, or chicken shit. But either way, you're still eating shit.
Yeah, here's what I say sometimes when I'm talking to people that trust the government inherently. I say, if the government loved us so much, why didn't they plant food trees everywhere? And encourage us all to pick our own fruit, grow our own gardens, and basically, because that's how I think human beings should eat. I'm not one, but I know it's the right thing to do. In the past, I was a vegetarianism. I didn't eat meat for quite a while. Since I came back from Turkey to Scotland, basically, it's just to survive some cheapies. I started eating meat. But when you think about actually what you do eat meat, it's another sentient being. We're taking that and we're consuming it. That's pure death.
Well, I've described myself for a couple of years now as the world's worst vegetarian. Right? I can go months and months and months, and eating meat doesn't even pop into my head. But I know that in myself, if I ever fancy a bacon roll or a steak pie, I can fucking have one, But I don't think eating an animal, which is that's what it is. You're eating an animal. If you're going to eat an animal, eat it all. Don't fucking waste any of it. Don't just take the best slice off a coo's ass and fry it up and have it with some chips just because you fancy that for your tea. Just either have it all or fucking nothing.
Well, a lot of people, when they eat meat,
area where sort of Ayrshire meets Dumfries and Galloway, a wee bit called Loch Doon. Beautiful area of Scotland in the southern uplands. And me pished as a fart, falls asleep in the tent, and I wakes up in the morning and I'm thinking, there's something in this fucking tent. What is this? There's something here. My brother had went into the wee farm about half a mile down the road and got a live chicken.
Right.
A couple of quid for a live chicken at the time, and he stashed it in the tent. And I'm fucking lying there, and I opens my eyes, and this fucking thing's walking about, and fucking like that. And I'm like, jeez, what the fuck's this? So I get out screaming. But to be fair, that chicken made her tea that night, and it was fucking beautiful.
Yeah. Well, I think, if you were living out in nature, and the African tribes or whatever, and it's part of your natural recycling or just living with the earth, sometimes they eat an animal, and they do eat it all.
Mm-hmm.
The Aboriginals don't waste anything. And
a lot of ceremonies around their kills, and whether it's drinking their blood or blood marking and stuff like that, there is a lot of ceremonies involved in their everyday hunts.
Yeah, that's right. Some of them, revere the animal, and
Mm-hmm.
they've got that hunter that chases the whole pack, and eventually one of them will drop off and kind of offer itself, and it's kind of done the symbiosis.
Mm-hmm.
That's a whole different ballgame from slaughterhouses, because even in these slaughterhouses, not just the fact they're eating an animal, these animals know that they're going to their death, and they've just seen their mate Harry up there get a bullet through his head or a bolt,
Mm-hmm.
They're full of adrenaline. So that's a fear that in the meat, and we absorb that when we eat.
Definitely, and that's a bang on point when it comes to things like a subject a lot of people don't like hearing about, adrenochrome.
Yeah, I was going to bring it up actually.
Again, there are people out there that are, I've said it in my books, there are people out there torturing, raping, killing kids, and drinking their blood, eating their flesh. It's an absolutely horrendous way of thinking about things, but it's a thing. It's real. These fuckers are doing it, and coming from this, is it an adrenalized fluid through the pineal gland? That's built up through fear and torture, and it's horrible, it's disgusting, and it's one of those you can barely find the words to describe it in civilized conversation.
Yeah, you can't put it into words really.
No, that's a nice way of doing it.
Hillary Clinton's emails were found with John Podesta, etc., and there was a video found on a laptop of Hillary and some cohorts raping and basically going to town on, I don't know what exactly, child of some description. And I think the policemen that watched it were actually physically going to have to be physically sick. It was that disgusting. And 9 out of the 12 people that seen the laptop are now dead.
Mm.
And there was somebody said that they've seen it, and if you get a chance to see it, don't watch it because you'll never sleep again.
It's like a movie that's no longer out there, The Hunt.
Right. Don't know.
It's a fucking real thing. It happens. It's just part of the predictive programming that they just.
Yeah, it's just a lot of the trucks in there that go after them and kill them. Yeah, that happens. Yeah. See, I don't know if you've heard of this, this QAnon. Have you heard of that? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the theory is that, I don't know, this is one thing that's puzzling me about it. This adrenochrome supposedly comes from young children, but apparently Wuhan had made that synthetic version of that.
Yeah.
I don't know how would they be the same then, because it's not.
Well, what I've been able to read into it, which it's a difficult thing to find out, as you know yourself. The artificial versions of anything are never quite as good as the originals.
Yeah.
Hence the reason that adrenochrome ties into child pornography, paedophilia, mass abduction, rapes, tortures, murders, and all that insanely horrible side of things that's going on. But there is the artificial version, which is out there, but it just doesn't quite give the same the same high as the real deal. So
I've heard about this just today, that apparently the chemical structure of that one looks like a rabbit. So when they say follow the white rabbit,
I've seen that.
Apparently there's these white hats who have been working with Donald Trump and the high military in America to bring down this Satanist club, and they were apparently tainted.
Donald Trump tried to bring down a Satanist club. Well, he's fucking taking fucking paychecks off them, eh?
Well, there is that side of it, but at the same time, he said a lot of things through this QAnon and his tweets and whatever, that stuff's happening in the background. There's been a lot of pedos taken out and down in the past couple of years out into high positions. But anyway, they're saying that they've put some of the COVID-19, a particular strain or something, into the synthetic adrenochrome from Wuhan, China. Coincidentally, that's where it gets made. So the paedophiles have taken it, namely like Tom Hanks, Madonna, Ellen DeGeneres.
I'm glad you said Tom Hanks, because, I've been calling that cunt a fucking paedophile for bastard years. And people look at me as if I've just shat in their mince.
Right, they put it in so because we've seen the video where he said, "Oh, sexy baby, sexy baby." Have you seen that one?
No, that doesn't ring any bells.
From TV show, I'm not sure if it was his daughter or certainly a young girl dressed, and he's giving it, "Oh, you're such a sexy baby" to this 5-year-old. It's
fucking hell, man.
So they're making these videos, and basically they're saying they've got coronavirus, but actually they've been arrested in their own house arrest and they're quarantined, because Madonna had like a bracelet on, and so did Ellen. And there's some things, clues that Tom Hanks has been, a picture with a typewriter says Corona on it, but it looks like it's from a jail cell and things like this, and pictures with the FBI escorting them off a plane. So it's like that's their way of identifying it, and they're all getting held, and there's going to be like 10 days where there's going to be no internet or TV, but they're going to broadcast these guys' confessions, so they're all going to be alert to the truth of what's been going on. And that's the reason for this lockdown and stuff just now. It's the cover version of coronavirus and lockdowns for the mass public, not to get hysteria and stuff, but it's actually for these guys to go in and into the deep state, and also all these tunnels, the dumbs, the deep underground military bases. They're going into them and clearing them all out to get rid of this satanic presence once and for all, and they're all going to get executed or basically face a public trial and get humiliated.
Yeah, I don't think they'll be clearing out the dumbs of any satanic presence. I think that there could be an argument made, a perfectly reasonable argument made, for satanic influence being multiplied at these times as opposed to cleared out.
Okay. So do you think this is like some kind of, it could be another psyop whereby they're pretending to clear all this stuff out, but really they are doing this lockdown, so we can be sitting back saying, QAnon's taking care of it all, but really now's the time we should be out in the streets and pulling this 5G down and not...
Well... be out on the streets exactly at the time when they've stopped us from being out in the streets. Public gatherings of more than 2 people.
Well, that's the point.
Can't be a thing, so doing away with your right to protest.
Well, some of the laws that were passed a couple of days ago, they say they're only temporary, but it's like...
Temporary my fucking hoop.
So now, if you die in police custody, they can basically burn you.
Yeah, burials and stuff like that, which it's a horrible part of humanity that I've worked in and I've helped out on burials. It's a thing. I've helped out with grave digging and stuff like that. Yeah, they have basically legalized mass graves. They can bury you whenever, wherever, however, and to hell with you.
So do you think all of this is done? How do they get their power to do this? Do you think
they get the power through your acquiescence?
Yeah, but into the birth certificate and our use of the legal name, basically, which they own the copyright to. So we basically are the Walking Dead, because we think we're a functional piece of paper that exists within their system,
Exactly.
So we have to realise that we're not lost at sea, which is we are considered lost at sea. We have to claim our life birth, take full ownership of our paperwork or our, sovereignty.
Well, to say you're born from your mother's waters.
Yeah.
Is that part of where this whole kind of almost naval terms come from? It could be, might not be. I might be reading too much into things, but you're certainly no wrong in what you're saying. made up fucking, legal names. Jesus. That's why I keep telling people, look at the language that's being used in news shows. When the Prime Minister comes up and says something, if there's even so much as a half-truth in whatever the Prime Minister's saying, and I don't give a fuck what party he comes from, because they're all different cheeks in the same arse, right? If there's even so much as a half-truth in what he's saying, it's usually a fucking spelling mistake. Right.
Yeah, I think they do tell you the truth, but they do it in such a way that it seems like something else, just by the use of language.
I mean, a great thing is learning even just a handful of words, and this thing called legalese. And you know what legalese is, Billy.
Yeah.
For the folk that don't, it's the language of the law society. Right, and there's one thing I said it to a couple of my clients at work. It's about a kind of light-hearted joke, a few months ago. And this is all guys that have been through the court system and been given community service.
They've been summoned. What do you do?
Yeah.
You call the dead,
Yeah. I said to them, any of you can think of and tell me what the one word is that the law society uses to describe the British legal system. And I said, I even bought a cake. I said, a nice wee fucking caramel cake. It says, there's a cake here for anybody that tells me what it is. And it went on for a couple of days, and I'm like, fuck, I don't know. And this young boy, he's sitting making a cup of tea or something, and he went, this is fucking bollocks. I went, there you go. Here's your cake. You got the word of the day. The word is bollocks. It's Bollox. It's not the bollocks that most people are thinking of. I think it comes from Latin, a Latin sort of variative to mean to stir up or cause confusion.
Well, the whole system is bollocks, basically, because they're not using language correctly. There's a guy called David Wynne Miller and Jay Gould, especially, they've done different jobs, but David Wynne Miller basically got a correct syntax for language, so how we should use language, and it's basically our language that we do use is all babble. So when these contracts, basically, they're not given the definition of every word in that contract, so we can rebut it to them and say, please do that. Because
the language of contracts comes from the language of the law society. It's the same language. It's legalese. It's fucking bollocks.
Yeah. So because
getting to know what a couple of these words mean for regular punters like you and I, what's wonders, like the word must. You must do this on a contract or whatever. You must do this or do that. The word must is entirely synonymous with the word may.
Yeah, that's correct.
Because it's a choice. It's got to be a choice because they can't fucking force the physical human being to do anything.
Yeah.
It's this fictional entity that they think they can force.
Mm-hmm.
So when they say anything you say can and may be used against you in a court of law, then it must be used against you.
Okay.
Okay. Where do you stand when you're in the court? You're in the fucking dock.
Yeah.
Ken what I mean?
There was
terminology. I mean, you have a bank account, right? You have a bank current account, the river and the current deposits on the bank. It's all there for people to see. It's just people that don't want to put their specs on and see the fucking thing.
Yeah. There's an episode of Happy Days that went into the correct way to. It was basically.
You're giving your age away now, Billy.
Well, not necessarily. It was a YouTube video I seen of a guy showing how this episode of Happy Days was basically a public announcement of how you should act in court. For instance, there was a judge who sits up higher normally, yeah? Mm-hmm. Well, if you're on lower than him and in the dock, you're in a box with basically, if you're on a piece of paper and it's in a box, it's actually taken off the piece of paper. So when you vote, it's not actually on the paper.
Yeah.
Something else. But because he was on the same plane, the judge doesn't have to listen to a single word that you're saying. But if you go up and you touch the guy's desk or whatever, then you've been brought into the same plane as the judge. So then he has to listen to you,
Yep.
So there's all kinds of tricks
Yeah, a great trick that I've seen a lot of YouTube videos. There was a guy somewhere in England. He had his phone out and he started recording it. The judge or the sheriff or whoever the fuck it was that was sitting there with his nice fancy dress on and his wig and that were doing his thing, and he refused to stand up and acknowledge the authority of the court.
Yeah.
And as he continued to refuse, just peacefully sitting down, not saying a fucking word, just not registering the authority of this bullshit establishment that was in front of him. Eventually, the judge walked away, went through the room, and the guy eventually stood up and said, "The judge has abandoned ship."
Yeah, exactly.
And he fucking nailed it with that. The judge has abandoned ship. I am now the ultimate authority as a sovereign human being in this court, and I'll tell you what's happening.
Yeah. That wasn't Katie of Gaia, was it?
It might have been, I can't remember if it was.
Yeah, she done something like that, but she was adamant not to use her surname because that's the legal name. And eventually something similar happened. But yeah, it's a bit crazy. People should. There's another thing. Even when the police say to you, "Do you understand?" It means, "Do you stand under my authority?" And even the word authority has the word author in it. So they're writing this stuff, you know.
As I always said, I've had many altercations with the police over the years. I'm not an angel. It's happened. You know, police say, "Do you understand?" I say, "No." And then they talk to me like I'm some sort of dumb shit window licker. And I still say I don't understand. And I do it on purpose because I know what the word understand means in their language.
Do you think the low-level police are aware of this? Or do you think, you have
I think that they're trained to be police officers, not policemen and women.
Yeah.
I think, see if we had a police service instead of a police force, it'd be a whole different ballgame.
Yeah. The fact that, there's been a trick played on us. I don't know if you've heard of a YouTube site called the Justinian Deception, whereby these guys are really, really going quite deep into this. And they're saying that we should actually be the benefactor in the system. But instead they've tricked us by giving us the wrong birth certificate, so we're now like the debtor. So we're always put into the place of the debtor. But really, if you learn who you are and you learn how the system works, they should be working for us.
Yep.
It's up to us to kind of realize that and then put them into the position.
You've nailed it there, Billy. I mean, people, as an employee of a local council just now, right? People think that local councils are public servants and that kind of role. Well, not every single local council out there. At the moment, I'm working for Dundee City Council. I've worked previously for Perth and Kinross Council. I've worked previously for East Ayrshire Council. People don't realise that councils themselves are fictitious business entities in their own right, and they're run for profit. Hence
because everything's a corporation.
All that shit, right? Well, they're not here as to serve the fucking public. They're basically a private fucking business that's publicly funded, and people don't fucking grasp this.
But politicians themselves are listed in some of these things. Same with the Labour Party, the Tory Party, the police. They are corporations, and they're not concerned about road safety when there's
one thing that got me when I was researching for my last book was it done in sort of Devon and Cornwall, around that area, sort of in the arse end of fucking England. One of the local authorities down there started to follow the money. Where the fuck's the money going? And I found out that the local authority there had a parent company. And the parent company was known as the Blues and Twos Credit Union. I'm like, wait a minute, what the fuck's going on here? So again, follow the money. Where does it go? The Blues and Twos Credit Union, its parent company was the local constabulary. So the local constabulary was ultimately the parent company of the local authority, the local council that was happening down there. And it made me think, where the fuck is your council tax going? If they're paying for the fucking police down there. And then it might have been the next county up. My geography's maybe no up to scratch. Devon and Cornwall might be like Dorset, something like that. So the next one up. Their local authority, the local council, the ultimate parent company was again through the police. And its ultimate parent company was, as you trace it through, IBM, Computer Mob. And it just so happened that they were the first fucking police force in the whole of the UK to bring in the body cameras that were built by, guess who? IBM.
It's amazing, eh?
Well, it's only amazing if you take your tinfoil hat off for a wee bit, you know what I mean? But my tinfoil hat was made out of the aluminium in your vaccines, and I've maintained that for years.
That's a good point. I can't believe, again, people don't research vaccines before injecting them into their kids. That's when I basically says, okay, in the past I had a vaccine, went to Africa or whatever, give me I'll get a paper. But when it's a newborn child, you say, okay, well, it's my responsibility for this. Let's research this a bit. And after a while, then that's like, there's no way am I putting that anywhere near my kid. And then you get the reaction from the doctors. The guy in the Coleman there, he's wanting to basically strike me off the practice.
Yeah.
I didn't go along with the program, and because they make money.
Just wait on the mandatory vaccines for COVID-19. Because they're coming.
I mean, that is crazy in itself. The fact that, what we know, first of all, the whole vaccine thing, whether it works or not, is up for debate. But we just assume that doesn't get asked the question. And then, second of all, this virus can't be transferred, and we're all going to queue up to get something that doesn't work for something that doesn't exist.
I love that whole thing. It's like vaccine mentality, the pro-vaccine mentality. It's like, you're not wearing deodorant. That means mine won't work.
Exactly. If the vaccine's so good,
Come on, I mean.
If the vaccine's so good, then surely you should be confident in it working.
Aye.
I'm all right, Jack. And that's coming up to about an hour now, so I think we'll round that one up, but I'll be happy to get you back on again sometime if you're up for that.
Yeah, man, anytime.
Okay. If you enjoyed that, folks, let us know. Stephen, your book is called Scratch the Surface. How can people get a hold of that?
At the moment, your best bet is just getting a hold of me through the old day world of Facebook, because I'm not technically minded. I used to have a website that would let you download it, but if you want to hold it, give me a shout on Facebook or email me steven.magners@gmail.com and we'll sort you out. Okay,
so if I put your email and that info underneath the video?
That's great, man.
Okay, we'll do that. Thanks very much for your time. It's been a pleasure. And
man.
Great going down the rabbit hole here.
Yeah, take care, mate.
All the best. Bye-bye.